Carbon capture and storage is becoming a much bigger part of climate policy and emissions reductions these days. In fact, the International Energy Agency just released a big study on it last week. So no surprise that Emissions Reduction Alberta has introduced some programs to encourage emissions reduction in the oil and gas industry and elsewhere. And to talk with me about that is Mark Summers. So welcome to the interview, Mark.
Oh, thanks very much, Mark. Great to be here.
Look, this is a global challenge. The scope of it is quite impressive. It's $50 million. Why don't you give us an overview of the program?
Yeah, for sure. So maybe I'll start with the ACT partnership. We're joining in for the third call, but the ACT partnership sort of predates our involvement. It's an international collaboration between 16 funding organizations from across the globe focused on accelerating CCUS technology toward commercialization. It's coordinated by the Research Council of Norway and has representation from 18 different countries among these 16 parties. ERA, representing Alberta, has now become the first subnational member of this consortium and will be participating in the third ACT call for proposals, Act 3. Act 3 has confirmed participation from 15 of the ACT partners and currently has a total estimated funding pot of around $50 million Canadian. And this Act 3 call for proposals is seeking innovation across the CCUS space, including carbon capture, CO2 conversion and utilization, as well as CO2 sequestration opportunities. And ERA has committed $5 million to support technologies with strong potential for commercialization in Alberta.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We've had a couple of experts on to talk about carbon capture and utilization. And Richard Adamson, who is has a company in this space, I think, if I remember correctly, was talking about how costs have really come down dramatically. I mean, we remember Boundary Dam and SaskPower's initial pilot project that way. I think it was $115 a metric ton, and now maybe it's 30, 40, 50. And is that one of the things that this challenge is meant to do, is to find ways to drive that cost down to it so that it's economic?
Yeah, absolutely. I know Richard well, and him and I agree on a great number of things, including the fact that ultimately we need a global collective effort to develop technologies that can cost effectively capture and store CO2. So if we take a step back and look at all the different pathways to a low emissions economy of the future, we can only get there where we need to be with a multi-pronged approach, including energy efficiency, renewable energy, electrification, nature-based solutions, and many others. And that includes carbon capture, CO2 utilization, and sequestration.
So what kind of projects do you think are likely to be funded? I mean, this is the third phase of this. Have we seen anything interesting come up in the first two phases that might be of interest to Alberta?
Yeah, so Alberta has not participated in Act 1 or Act 2, the first and the second phase, but there are some really exciting projects that are happening from around the world. It started as primarily a European-focused effort, but has since branched out. The US is participating, Alberta's participating, India is participating, and a number of other countries are. So there's some really interesting opportunities that have come out of Act 1 and Act 2. And in Act 3, we expect things to further advance. Ultimately, successful projects will be those that can facilitate the emergence of CCUS across industrial sectors in Alberta as well as across the world. Now, I mean, more specifically for Act 3, what ERA is looking for is opportunities that have strong possibility to commercialize CCUS in the province of Alberta. And we're really, if I boil it down, we're really seeking two types of projects for ERA's funding in Act 3. The first is projects that happen here in Alberta. This is ERA's bread and butter, advancing local or global technologies for use in Alberta. This could include field testing or demonstration at either an industrial site or even at the Alberta Carbon Conversion Technology Center here in Alberta. And then, of course, due to the nature of this international collaboration, there's a second type of project that we're interested in, and that is supporting local Alberta companies to work on projects that are based outside of Alberta so they can bring that knowledge and bring that technology back to the province of Alberta so it can proliferate here.
Last question, Mark. I've seen these challenges proliferate over the last 3 to 5 years, maybe, and they seem to be a really effective way of stimulating innovation and funding early stage startups. Is that ERA's experience with these?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, you know, you've probably heard this many times before, but it's as important now as it has ever been, particularly with the global economy, the local economy, and the COVID pandemic. It's extremely important to have partnerships, both local, private, public partnerships, but even international collaborations more so. There's no question about it. There's risk involved in advancing technology that hasn't been commercially demonstrated. You don't know for sure if it's going to work. Investors don't know if they're going to get a return on their investment. And so it's really important that that risk gets shared. And that is the intent of ERA funding, absolutely, to work with industry, to work with investors and help cross the valley of death to get these really exciting, potentially groundbreaking technology in a position where private investment can take over and share that risk ultimately.
Thank you very much, Mark. Really appreciate this, and we'll check in the future and see how the challenge is going.
Yeah, thanks so much, Markham. It's always great chatting with you.